This critical line of infrastructure in the United States is under attack. And it's not by a person, but it is by a weather system. Drought across the Midwest of the United States is cutting off possibly up to 60% of grains and soybeans across the United States that are going out for export. A lot of grains and soybeans travel by the Mississippi River on barges. And the water levels on the Mississippi River are at record lows. In New Orleans, or whatever you want to call it, the water level is half what it is usually for this year. That's against averages over the last 20 years. It is half of that right now for this time of year. Not only that, but a lot of the branches out there are down significantly as well. We're seeing certain ports that are able to get barges in and out with lots of grain, and not only is it getting grain out, but it is getting fertilizer in. And we're seeing huge problems here. Just to give you some kind of idea of why this is mission critical. Like I said, 60% of the grain in the United States that goes to export internationally travels by barge. 54% of the soybeans across the entire United States that get exported travel by barge. If you're like, well, why don't we just put it on trains? Why don't we put it on trucks? Now, there is that whole thing right now where truck rates are dropping because the economy is cratering, and so there's truck drivers who really could use the hauling. But the thing is, it's just so expensive to move things by truck. One barge on the river is the equivalent to 35 train cars full of grain, or one barge is equivalent to 134 semi-trailers. So 134 trucks driving the grain is equivalent to one barge. Not only are some places barges not able to get in right now, but also we're seeing that other places the water level is so low they're having to cut the loads on the barges in some places by half. If the barge can only carry half as much and you have the same number of barges, that means we have millions of tons that are being forced to stay on farms. We're getting reports that increasingly farmers are piling their grain as well as their beans, their soybeans, on the ground on their farm in the hopes that they will be able to get the majority of those off before they rot. And that's basically a game that happens. Now, it's not like they just literally pile them on the ground. They do some prep work. They put down stuff. They have like a collar oftentimes that they use to keep it from, spilling over. And then they tarp it over. But that's not the ideal way of storing your grain, storing your soybeans. You can do that for a short period of time and not lose most of them. But the simple fact is, as soon as they hit the ground, you are losing some of them. And you have to worry about the rot that's happening. And that is happening increasingly across the Mississippi Basin because grain elevators and soybean elevators are not accepting new product. And so we're getting reports of trucks being turned around that are going out from farms fully loaded. They're getting to the grain elevators and being told that there's no more room. They're not accepting. And so they're being turned around and sent back to farms, which is a huge expense for farmers to be paying to truck it and then being forced to pay it again. And what do they do with the product? They expected that to be gone, and now it's coming back to them. They may not have anywhere to store it. at this time. And so this is just putting farmers in a really, really tough situation where if they're not prepared to store the grain, store the beans on their own property, they are looking at having to take extreme measures like piling on the ground. And this is not unheard of for them. I mean, they're professionals. They know what to do. They have options, but these are looking increasingly like bad options. To give you some ideas here, Winona, Minnesota, barge traffic was down to 50 barges in September. It's the lowest in a decade. They're talking about now possibly closing the river from Quincy, Illinois, all the way up to Minneapolis, Minnesota. That is, if the water level drops anymore, they're looking at closing that whole stretch, which is huge. That is going to be massive for fertilizer getting out to farms, and that's going to be massive for the barges of grain and beans that need to come out of there. In Minneapolis, a barge downriver last year, this time, cost $35 per ton. This year, it's over $100 per ton. That is going to impact the prices you see at the store. Inflation is going up rapidly, but when we start talking about 3 times increases, grain, soybeans, everything tripling in price. This is the kind of stuff we're talking about. We're talking about fertilizer prices skyrocketing. We're talking about transport prices skyrocketing. We're talking about every single input that goes into making your food is skyrocketing up. And the question is, how much of the grains and soybeans are going to be lost this year because they cannot be transported out in a timely manner? That is going to impact the world economy of grains. We're seeing the impact, one domino after the next falling. And we keep warning, we keep warning, we keep warning. Wake up, it's coming. Now, do I have a timetable for you? Can I tell you when this is going to happen? I can look into my crystal ball. It's just, sort of like your crystal ball. It's kind of foggy. We can't see for sure. All we know is the storm is coming our way. Food supplies are dropping. We were saying potato shortage, potato shortage, potato shortage. And everyone's there like, the last month they show up at the store, where are all the potatoes? We've been sharing this with you. Yes, the potato shortage is real, and the potato shortage, we ran out of potatoes. That's just what happened. Certain varieties, we ran out of potatoes before the end of the year. Now the potato harvest is coming in now. It's going to be relieved temporarily. But when are we going to run out of potatoes next year? Because the potato harvest this year is not going to reverse the damage of the potato harvest last year. That was the problem. This year, it got worse. Less potatoes than last year. That means we're going to run out not in September next year. We're going to run out when? August, possibly July. We're going to run out of potatoes again. And it's going to be months of potatoes. Do you think people are going to start panic buying potatoes when they start seeing no potatoes or certain varieties of potatoes disappearing? People are going to start noticing. And when the moment that people really start paying attention, you're going to see the food fly off those shelves like nobody's business. You saw the toilet paper. How long did it take for that to disappear once people realized that there was a serious problem? Once people realized there's a serious problem, they acted, and they acted quickly, and the stores were not able to keep up, which caused more people to see there's a problem, and they acted and caused more of a problem. What happens when it's not paper that's a luxury of wiping your butt with, but we're talking about essential food? Essential food to keep you and your family alive. Are people going to be more desperate, more crazy, take greater extremes, you better believe they will. Because when it comes to wiping your butt, that is a downright inconvenience. But, pun intended, when it comes to food, you're going to see people lose their minds. Millions of pounds of food are hitting the ground and it's starting to rot. The clock is ticking, folks. The clock is ticking, and we're seeing things moving faster and faster and faster. What we've been saying is literally happening right now. If you're not seeing it, it's because you're not looking for it, you're not listening for it, you're not paying attention. Because, yeah, they don't want you to know about it. They don't want you talking about it. Don't you go on Facebook and start talking about these things, because you will get shut down. Yeah, that's what's happening. Don't you get on TikTok and start talking about these things. Don't get on Twitter. You will get shut down for talking about canning and all these other extremist things like putting up food, hunting, and crazy things about looking at your store shelf and saying there's product missing, let's talk about it, and they're going to say, well, that's just an extremist there. Yeah, extremist for talking about providing food for your family. That's what we're facing, folks. I'm so glad to be back from Florida, working with them there, providing hot meals and hot food. Has been a huge blessing to me. I'm going to be putting out a video later this afternoon talking about some of the very real things that we're seeing there, warnings I have for you from what we're seeing at a macro level at that response, which are greatly troubling and concerning. If you like this video, if you found this video to be useful, informative, you might want to check out this other video from me right here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you later. Steve Poplar out.